All right, first practice of spring ball, man. I think our guys had good energy today. That's kind of what you expect. We've had a really good off season. I think it's amazing what a difference a year can make when you got a group of guys, kind of our core guys that are returning, that know what the expectation is and kind of how we operate, how we run practice. The younger guys or the new guys can kind of fall in line behind them, and I think that's been really beneficial for us, not just through the winter program, but even today. I think we got a lot of good work in. Two spot and everything, and so that's awesome because everybody gets reps, and the old adage, hope springs eternal. Everybody's getting reps, everybody has an opportunity, and then it gets tighter and tighter as we get through spring ball. And so it'll be interesting to see how these guys handle that when we go down to one spot, and some of the other guys, maybe the guys that aren't getting as many reps, how do they respond? Do they continue to stay locked in and continue to ride for the brand, or do they kind of start to drift? And so that's one of the things that I'm definitely looking at. But pleased with the way they came out today, and we're doing things a little bit different. We're not taking days off in between, so we've got to be smart. These will be tight practices. We'll have some days that we're very, very light, about an hour and 15 minutes, where we just focus on fundamentals. And some days we go a little longer and bang, but because we're going 5 days a week, we got to be smart with their bodies. But it'll allow us, I think, to get through spring a little bit quicker.
You kind of made it clear spring isn't necessarily your favorite, but what do you want to get accomplished over the next 15 practices?
Yeah, I think that we need to make sure we have a pretty good idea of where our pecking order is when we start fall camp, and I think that I think it's well documented that, on April 7th, we anticipate the House decision being codified, and then that's going to there's battles out here, not just at the top of the roster, but at the bottom of the roster as well. And so it's important for these kids to come out and compete every single day, because we're going to have to trim our roster down. And so a little bit of, hey, let's see where we stand, get our seating chart ready for fall camp, and then also really try to raise the bottom of our roster and make sure there's a lot of competition there as well.
When you look at quarterback, you guys didn't bring in someone from the portal. You could maybe do it in the spring, but I guess what led to the decision that Chubba and AJ you were comfortable with, and what do you want to see from them to kind of feel?
I think this is the deal. I don't know if I'm going to keep any of those guys if I bring another guy in. And that was a calculated decision. It wasn't that we didn't have opportunities or folks didn't gauge our interest, but we felt like we liked our quarterback room. And throwing a new dynamic in there maybe sets us back, and I want to go forward. And so that was kind of the logic behind that, and I feel really good about those guys.
And what are you looking for from them to know that they're the right leader for the offense?
Mastering what we're doing, making good decisions with the ball, and bringing it every single day. It's about consistency at that position. And so, if we got guys that are having good days and bad days, that doesn't help us. We got to be, on point every single day.
You get the sense that you're further along at this time this year than you were a year ago?
Yeah, we're operating a decent amount of our offense and defense on day one, which that was not the case a year ago at this time. So,
in terms of the coaches and maybe some new roles, how do you think that transition's been going?
I think it's been really good. I think that as I kind of mentioned, I really feel strongly that we've got good people here, and it's not always about first thing you got to do is get good people, and then you worry about where they sit. And after going through a season, you can see there's some things that were more natural fits for guys like Parker and Nico at some positions. And then we brought in some guys like Rob Christoph, who's a veteran coach who brings a lot to the defensive side of the ball. And Matt Wade working with the quarterbacks, another veteran coach. And I think that's really elevated our staff. And so I like where we're at with that group. I think those guys have really done a nice job in the off season of trying to simplify our teaching progressions and tighten things up. And I'm excited to see how David handles this, and I think he's going to do a tremendous job for us.
How does Coach Mastro being back in the fold in terms of a position coach help you guys?
Yeah, I think that's also just another veteran coach. Like there's no substitute. Yeah, hey, youth and enthusiasm is great, and you need that, but there's no substitute for experience. And he's been through a lot of battles. And he's an expert coach, and he has high standards for his guys, and that carries over. It doesn't just end at the running back position. That filters throughout our entire offense and our team.
I heard you say something about the difference of being on Wolfpack versus Mackey. Is there a difference when you guys are out here?
Well, just from a standpoint of what I want us to focus on. I don't want us, over there thinking that we're trying to win the Super Bowl. I want us focusing on getting better at individual skills and kind of slowing things down and working on technique and fundamentals and improving our skill. And then when we come to Mackey, it's more about competing. And so that change in, hey, what's my purpose in practice today? What am I trying to get better at? That's what we're doing over here. All right, now we're putting the pieces together. Let's go play. And hopefully there's carryover in terms of the fundamentals and techniques into our team settings.
We saw some of that competition maybe start to boil over a little bit, but I remember you like it up to a certain level, I guess. It's probably somewhat encouraging to see them getting after it, but also you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if it becomes something that impacts what I feel like is going to be a penalty on Saturday, or if it bogs practice down, and, hey, just get out of here. Let's leave. That's fine. We're good for the day. And so, we've got to become a more disciplined football team, and that was an issue for us last year. One of the stats that I'll throw out to you is that, statistically, our penalties actually went down. Penalties per game in 24 versus 23 actually went down. What went up, and went up significantly, were what they call high impact penalties, right? So it's 15-yarders, 10-yard penalties. And those are the things that are drive killers on offense and extend drives for the opponent on defense. And so that's kind of a focus for us in that area.
I saw you put an emphasis on ball security as well. Is that something you're always harping on, or is there an extra emphasis just given the
Well, I think it was a great teachable moment. We had an interception, and, those defensive guys don't get to carry the ball very often. And you got a guy who's carrying it like a loaf of bread, and that's going to end up getting the ball's going to go back to the offense there. And so take advantage of the opportunity to emphasize that when it presents itself.
Are there positions in particular that you think are like most open heading into the spring, just because you maybe aren't quite as solidified there?
I mean, I think we got a whole new running back room. Obviously, we lost Tez and Jaden, and so there's going to be a lot of competition at wide receiver. Those are two that I think from a skill position on offense. We've got some new talent at tight end, so it'll be fun to watch how those guys meld into what we're doing. And then obviously on the offensive line, we've got some new pieces there with Hadeen and Jack, and it'll be interesting to see how those go. So there's a lot of good competition on that side. I think edge on the defense and inside linebacker, and then we're very young and very different. We lost our entire secondary. We've got some veteran guys, but they're new to the system. And so I think that it's hard to pinpoint any one. I think that on all three levels of defense and every position on offense, there's going to be very good competition, and we got to get a good idea where we stand coming out of this.
In terms of those offensive playmakers, with losing some of your wide receivers, some of your running backs, are there returning guys or new guys that you feel like need to step up for this offense to be good?
Well, I think, I look at a guy like Marcus Bellin, who, was a productive player, had some injury issues towards the end of the season, and I think he would have even been more productive. So having him kind of take the next step, I think two guys that stand out to me 100% are Nate Burleson Jr. and Marshawn. I think those guys have the talent and ability. And, we can't just keep bringing guys in and saying, oh, you're the next guy. Like, those guys need to take that step. They both had really good off seasons, and I'm excited to see how they produce in the spring.
In terms of running back, it looks like Savion's not on the roster. I mean, is that...
He's coming off a knee injury. He may or may not be with us. It just depends. But right now, he had surgery in December, and so he wouldn't be out here anyway. But, we've got a whole new group in that room. I like the competition. I think that some of the things we're going to do with our run game will accentuate what those guys' talents are.
But you're not closing the door on him?
I mean, not right now, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about Chris Ross as well?
Similar situation.
Gotcha. Yeah. His former teammate, Keaton Crawford, did really well at the Combine. I guess how pleased were you to see that, and how much do you think that helped him?
I think he made a decision to come to Nevada to become an every down player and prove that he could do that. And I think he was a really productive player for us. And then obviously his talents and his natural skill and ability showed out at the Combine. So really happy for him and excited to see how he does on his pro day.
In terms of injuries, anybody who we would expect to see out of here is going to be out for camp?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously that's I think we've got some guys that we're holding out right now, some off-season surgeries and things like that are pretty standard for spring ball.
I guess what gets you most excited for this season? I mean, I know it's kind of the unofficial kickoff. I know your roster won't be fully set until after the portal, but what's getting you up in the morning and getting you happy?
I mean, I think we're a tighter, more disciplined team right now than we were a year ago at this time, and we're if this was a 400-meter race, we're 200 meters ahead of where we were a year ago, and now we got to extend that lead. We got to continue to put pennies in the bank, and I think there's going to be a lot of growth that takes place year two here, and I'm excited to see that.
I know you talked to Chris about it recently, just the dynamic of spring now and how everyone's looking at it a little different. I saw Nebraska is going 7-on-7, and their spring game is pretty historic. I guess a sign of the times. Yeah,
I mean, I think college football's changing, and you got to adapt at every level. I mean, that your off season has to change, how you handle spring. I think the calendar is going to have to be adjusted. I really believe that. I think that there's more value for us in doing some mini camps in June than there is in doing spring ball in April and March. I mean, I think there's, I just think that's, again, like you said, it's kind of a sign of the times.
You had alluded to recruiting and being on the trail. What are some of the things that families and recruits have asked you about this program and questions they may have?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, ironically, the most frequent question I get is, Coach, why are you at Nevada? Because I think they can go on the internet and they can look at my resume. right? And they can go, okay, so what's the draw here? And I think what I would say to that is, I mean, if you go back and you look at Chalice High School, my very first head job, they hadn't won a game in God knows how long, right? And so that was a huge mountain to climb. We did it. 2 years we were in the state playoffs, right? The same thing, and you look at the college, the opportunities I've had in college, whether it was at Texas, where we were a four-win team year one, make it to the CFP in year three, similar type of trajectory when I was the head coach at Montana State. So I guess the answer is I love a challenge, and it's going to be a really rewarding experience when we get this place back to where it's supposed to be, and I believe that. And so there's just something about taking on a challenge that appeals to me. And I think that's the type of coaches that we now have surrounding me with, and then the types of players that kind of have that chip on their shoulder. Maybe they were overlooked at another place, or they didn't get the opportunity somewhere, and they come here and, we just got to be too gritty to be pretty and just keep rolling, man.
Seems like that indoor facility is making progress, could break ground in the next couple of months. Is that question come up in recruiting? I guess how pleased are you to see?
Yeah,
that's
well, I think it's always a good sign, Chris, when you're investing in facilities, whether that's the new business building across campus or something like this on the athletics end. And so, it's going to be great for us. We had like 15 days around 60 degrees in February, and now we're going to get snow later in the week. And so as soon as we start spring ball, I should call the ski areas and say, don't close up until we're done with spring ball. But that part of it will be nice to have that in the future as well.
I guess you personally and your family, how much more established and just comfortable are you considering how you had to hit the ground running when you were hired?
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot more comfortable, obviously, and I think that I feel like I understand this place better. And every place has its uniqueness, and no two universities, no two communities are the same. And I feel like, number one, I really feel like I understand what's going to work here better in terms of the recruiting part of this, but also understand what we need to do to create excitement within the community. And a lot of that is being present. I mean, I think so far this semester we've done over 230 hours of community service. So just being present in our community, and kind of one of the themes that we've latched onto is this our town, our team. It doesn't matter if you went to school at the University of Nevada. If you live in Northern Nevada, this is your team. And so really trying to promote that and be a part of the community in a broader sense.
Since Mike brought up family, have you downloaded your son's single? Is that on the
playlist? Yeah. It's definitely on my Spotify. It's on my favorites. Yeah, he's got a couple songs out now. He's going to release a couple more, so that's been fun to be a part of that.
Where's the musical talent come from?
Not from me. Not from me. My wife's an artist, but my dad and my maternal grandmother were both musicians, and so it must have skipped a generation.
How about the house?
We're not there yet, baby. I'm hoping. That was what I was going to bring up first. I'll feel a lot more established when I'm in my house, but we're getting there.
You mentioned Nate the second. I had a chance to talk to Nate's senior recently, and he talked about some conversations he's had with you. What's it do to have a guy like Nate Burleson on your side, and what have some of those conversations been like?
Yeah, just how supportive he is. This place means a lot to not just to Nate, but to his wife and their family. And he's a guy that is supportive no matter what, which I think that's what it means to be a part of the Wolfpack, man. It's like it doesn't matter, hey, how the program's going here or there, man. I'm there every single day to back this thing and to know that we've got that kind of support. But he's also got a lot of reach too, And as I told Nate Jr., I said there'd be nothing that I would want to see more than for AJ and Chuba to be throwing touchdown passes to Nate Jr. out there. I think that helps our brand and helps our program in a lot of ways.
What are some of the parts of the field that you're looking to see how they develop throughout the next 15 practices?
Yeah, I think kind of hit on that. I think really it's every single person, right? I mean, it's all three levels on defense. Certainly there's some, I think one thing is, like, you look at the kicking game. So we brought in, Bailey Ettridge, who's an Australian rules type of guy. And so now, hey, how does that enhance what we're doing in terms of creating field position? So that's one that maybe is not as going to be well publicized, and we brought in a new kicker, and so like seeing those guys and how they develop, put them in some pressure situations, so we know, hey, these are the guys that we can count on to get that going. So I think, as I talked about a little bit, it's going to be a little bit of everything on offense and defense, but I think that's kind of a battle to keep in mind too.